Welcome into this segment of Behind the Pen presented by MostValuablePodcast.com. If you want to listen to the full podcast, go to blogtalkradio.com/MostValuablePodcast. Also, we're on iTunes, so check us out there as well. Thank you all for listening as always, and enjoy the show.
This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And it's weird to say that. Usually, when I'm a host, I don't get to say with Dave Oster anymore.
It's been a long time.
Me and you are usually on that side of the table.
Yeah, a lot roomier over here today.
And, well, yeah, you don't have my fat ass over there keeping up all the room. But you might be wondering, hey, guys, two things. First off, this is the prime time, or not the prime time, Behind the Pen.
This is BTP.
And there's no Mike Rankin.
Yep.
And second off, you might be thinking, guys, we can actually see your faces. Hello, I can see your faces too. And, you know, Dave and I filling in for Mike Rankin this week. A little busy, said, you know what, I can't do the podcast. I'm like, don't worry, bud. I got you covered. Calling in the lefty here and Dave Oster, the ringer.
Because, Ricky, we got a fever.
Because we got a fever. And the only thing that can top it is more Bulls talk. So we're going to talk Chicago Bulls, kind of keep the feature, like what you're used to here when you're coming to Behind the Pen. And that is Bulls talk, that is Chicago, just sports talk in general. And then Dave and I, we like NBA. We're on the fast break together, so we're going to talk a little Cleveland Cavaliers. So,
I mean, they did just lose the championship like 2 days ago.
They did lose the championship, and also it is wonderful to talk about what they could do in free agency because their contracts are messed up, and they got to trade somebody if they want to make a move this offseason. But Dave, we're going to start with the Bulls, a kind of two-part conversation. So if you're on YouTube, you'll have to wait day one, day two. But if you're on Blog Talk Radio, you're going to be able to listen to this the whole way through. And also, if you're on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, or Stitcher, thank you guys for giving us the download and the listen today. But Dave, part one, we're going to start with the draft when it comes to the Bulls. And I'm just going to put the question out frank to you and just lay it out there. Number 16th overall is where we're drafting in the first round. Who should we take? Who do we pick at number 16?
It's a lot of pressure, man. It's a lot of pressure.
You're Gar Foreman. Who you picking?
Oh, if
who
I'm
you picking?
If I'm Gar Foreman, if I'm John Paxson, I'm good.
Justin Jackson. That's your pick.
I think they're going Justin Jackson, and that seems like the obvious answer. It's a little bit of a cop-out in my mind. It's a safer pick. It's someone who has had time to develop in college. It's someone who you know what you're going to get out of. He has the range with his shot. His shot is very fluid. He has pretty decent defense. I know the quickness is in question, but he should translate pretty well at the NBA level. But again, it just feels like it's like, you know how last year we did Denzel Valentine? Didn't feel that good to pick Denzel, did it?
Well, it wasn't the sexy pick. And like you said, there's like two things. Before we started to record, you're like, the Justin Jackson pick, because one of the mock drafts we saw had it, you're like, yeah, that's kind of like Denzel. It's not the sexy pick. And then I made the comment of, is there a sexy pick here at 16? Or will we get to 16 and it'll be like, well, all the sexy players are gone. All the ones where it's like, that guy is the guy to help us.
I think that's when you start to roll the dice. Well, I mean, getting role players is great. Don't get me wrong. And that's how you fill out a team. But at this point, you know, the direction of the team is in question. And I think it has been in question ever since, you know, we lost our fearless leader in, Tom Thibodeau. You know, after he was gone, management clearly disagreed. We brought in Hoiberg. You know, he's had 2 years.
One completely different philosophy. One defense, one offense.
Yep. And, you know, we can't say much about that offense in production because it has not been existent.
True.
So with a team with some aging veterans, you know, possibly under contract, you know, not guaranteed, it all comes down to where do we want to go with this team. And in the draft, I feel like picking Justin Jackson is making a decision for us. That's saying we're going to give it another shot and another playoff push. So we're getting a guy who can be an impactful player. Again, it's that, you know, his floor and his ceiling are fairly close together, so it's a safer pick. But at the same time, I'm like, man, I could roll the dice on some of these guys and be like, you know, maybe it'll be a bust, but same side, like you'll never end up, if you're picking this late in the draft, you're not going to get a superstar unless you take a risk.
Well, and that's why to me, there's really two ways we can go with this pick. The first one is it's exactly what I did in our mock draft that we did for the Fast Break podcast, and that was going with a power forward, but going with a guy who can continue the mold of the stretch four. So like a TJ Leaf, a Tyler Lydon type player, a guy that you can put at the four, have him be that guy to stretch the floor, kind of space things out, because I know that you mentioned before we started recording that there are rumors that we're going to end up giving Nico the money to keep him here. I don't necessarily... that would be a move that I don't know if I'd necessarily agree with. I wouldn't care if we let Nico walk, but I don't want... I fear when you say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and give him the money. I fear that this management's going to be like, yeah, we gave him money, and now we're trapped. And now it's not April, and he only plays well in April.
Yeah, I mean, that's the unfortunate thing with Nico in our situation is he's had several years with us, and he has never consistently performed at a good level. He's seriously, it's like here one day, gone the next. He'll show up at the end of the season to give you that little bit of hope going into next year. You feel confidence, and then he shows up again in October and November, and it's like, who is this scrub on our team who is absolutely off the pick and roll? His 3-point shooting's inconsistent and just total defensive liability. And yeah, I mean, that's the problem. We went after, and that's the question is, do you feel like they'd go with another power forward after doing Bobby Portis, just 2 years ago, and seeing a little bit of flashes out of him as well, but again, overall disappointing.
If they're the way I'm looking at it is if we're giving Nico the money, we're not going to go with a guy that's going to be just a power forward. So if we give Nico the money, you can count out John Collins. Jared Allen, you can still kind of see because we can play him at the center. The only thing I kind of look at that, though, is why would we draft a center? I know you could need a backup because Rollo's not going to play every minute, but we have Rollo for this upcoming year and the year after. The guy I'm looking at, and this might be a guy where as a rookie he wouldn't be expected to step in and be the starter right away. You can work it, but when he's out there, he can stretch the floor. I like Luke Kennard. And the main reason why we're going to get to the free agent conversation in part 2 of this Bulls discussion. But the reason one of the main reasons I like Luke Kennard at 16 is because everything that I have read has kind of mentioned, and when people mention names that would be good fits for the Bulls, they're like, man, could you imagine if with that around 21 mil that we have in cap space right now, if we just left all the restricted free agents off the board and just went off after one player. If we could bring in J.J. Redick to kind of space out the floor, man, wouldn't that be good? Wouldn't that be good to get a shooter like that? Well, Luke Kennard could be that kind of a shooter, being the sharpshooting combo guard that he is. And also with that is I say he wouldn't have to step in and start because at the shooting guard position, we already have D. Wade out there. Yeah. And I mean, we could also kind of mix things up a little bit. Number one, D. Wade was injured most of last year, so there's going to definitely, especially late in the year, he was injured. So that means that could happen again. Luke Kennard could have an opportunity to start. And even after this year, after D. Wade is officially off the books, maybe we could move to the, Luke Kennard has developed into our sharpshooting shooting guard. We have Jimmy at the 3, and then it becomes next year in the draft or free agency, who's going to be that point guard that we go out and get. Hopefully that Rondo can stay healthy and be our main point guard for the rest of the season.
No, I think that's a fairly good strategy. I think Kennard is honestly one of the guys who's kind of been a late riser as of this last week. I think there's a lot of potential with him because he is someone who unfortunately garnishes the comparisons to Doug McDermott, to Nick Stauskas, to all these high scorers in college who, while they were fantastic shooters in college, their game didn't translate well enough to the NBA level. McDermott, I mean, I want to say jury's still out, but it's been a while. We know what he can and can't do. But personally, I think that Kennard has the ability to actually create his own shot, which is the big thing that separates him out from these other guys. And the ability to create your own shot at a shooting guard position is fantastic. He's decent with the ball in his hand. He never was really relied on heavily to be the primary ball handler. But I think that, as I don't know, combo guard's too strong, but I wouldn't feel awful. It's like last year. Somehow Zipser ended up, as a point forward for us at points in the game, which is just downright shameful. Well, and so also, we need somebody else who can be comfortable with the ball in their hand.
Well, and you mentioned, because one of the things I was going to say, you mentioned how he can create his own shot. What he could also do for us is because he's not that great of a finisher when it comes to being a guard, he could also be a guy where it's like, hey, I'm just going to sit out there. Jimmy, when you drive, if you create too much people coming in on you, I'll be there. Look for me. I'll be open. Kind of like what we've seen the Warriors do.
Yeah.
Drive in. Oh, hey, there's Clay. What up, Clay? And then Clay hits the open shot.
I mean, unselfish basketball has proven, again, that it's just the correct way to go as long as you have the three-point shooting to support it. Fred Hoiberg, we know, where he had his success, it was due to the three-point shot and having the right guys for the system. He hasn't had the right guys for the system here. The concern, and I'll pose it again, it's past drafts. When do we give up on these guys? If we're saying we're going shooting guard with Kennard, does that mean Denzel Valentine, who didn't get a ton of playing time last year, did get some, but looked very disappointed when he was at the NBA level? He was not keeping up D-League. He was like weirdly lights out shooting. But I mean, what do you do with him? Because now he's a 23-year-old shooting guard with 1 year under his belt and only, handful of games at the NBA level.
Look at Campaign as well. He's a young player.
I don't even want to do.
Well, he's a young player.
Yeah, he's only 22. He's younger.
That Garpax is kind of like when he talked about Campaign when we got him, point guard of the future. He's our future point guard, which doesn't look that good now.
I don't know what
it
he was
doesn't
smoking.
Look like both those players, and I was excited when we got Denzel Valentine because I liked what he brought to the Michigan State Spartans, and I thought he could bring that at least off the bench for us. For the Bulls, there's a name I actually want to bring up to you because I was looking today at an article on bloggable.com, which is the SB Nation Bulls site. And then this is what the headline reads. I'm going to read you the headline and then ask you about the player. Terrence Ferguson is everything the Chicago Bulls need in a Jimmy Butler complement. How would you feel if we got Ferguson with the 16th overall pick? That's a bit of a reach if you look at our mock draft.
We're rolling the dice, and that's what I like. I think at this point we have to make a stab at something because it's that level of NBA purgatory where you're not good enough to be an actual legitimate contender, but you're not bad enough to be a lottery team. So you're not going to strike gold on a free gimme at the top of the NBA draft. So you have to make some moves that gain role players. Sure, you can fill out a roster with role players, but that lands you in the same realm of where the Celtics are now, where they're searching desperately for that superstar guy. And that's on top of hitting the gold mine with Isaiah Thomas at a bargain contract coming off of, a bad trade. So, role players are great. They're not going to win you a championship. They're going to win you, 40 games, and that's about it. So we have Jimmy Butler right now. And that's a right now statement. You have to put that in huge,
well, because
bold
there's
asterisk.
always trade rumors around Jimmy Butler when he gets to the end of his contract, which is he's got next year, the year after, and then the player option year if he wants it.
Right. And as far as this organization and the way it's run with its management, there's always question whether, people would actually want to stay here for the long run.
And still, you got to think that player option year, I mention it, he ain't going to take that player option because he's going to want to cash in.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to want to cash in on the money that already he has seen guys cash in on. The thing that I think of with Ferguson, and maybe it's because I'm thinking of a Luke Kennard and kind of comparing them, because Terrence Ferguson coming in would also kind of fit that same guard position that Luke Kennard would be. The big thing that I look at, the difference between them is Ferguson is more of an athlete to me than Luke Kennard.
Absolutely.
And number two, I think Ferguson's a longer project or more of a project than Kennard. And I think you got to look at it this way. I'm going to use the example of what we just saw in the finals. In this day in the NBA, and I actually heard, I think it was Carmen and Yurko were talking about it today. It was either them or Waddle and Sylvie, where in today's NBA, the guys kind of like a LeBron James. They kind of lean on their athleticism more than back in the day.
Absolutely.
Where it's a more athletic league. We're talking about athletes left and right. However, what do you want to go with? Do you want to go with the athlete side, which I'm going to use the example of like LeBron, or do you want to go with just the shooting side and the less athletic, which I'm going to look at the Warriors? Which one won the finals? The more athletic team? Or the team that played, they played team basketball, but they were pure shooters and made their shots.
I think that's discrediting some of the athleticism on the Warriors. Someone like Draymond Green, who has the size and the quickness to go, both ways 1 through 5.
I mean, the transition games, the Warriors still have that transition game, but I'm talking pure athlete. you're looking at LeBron James. That's what I'm saying. And with me, I would maybe look at that and go, which do we want? Do we want to go with a guy who is a streaky shoot, would have to work on more consistent shooting? I mean, I look at Ferguson's shot chart. I'm seeing a lot of red from beyond the arc, where you look at Kennard's shot chart, it's pure green except for under the basket. Pure green.
No, and I completely understand that. The difference is Kennard's also 21 and Ferguson's 19.
Yeah.
So, it is going to be more of a project. He has the time and room to grow, and he's got the body for the NBA. His shot, well, it's streaky. He has the correct shooting motion, which is all you really need. You need that basis to build off of. It's a building block.
Look at Buddy Hield. Once he got the right shooting hand, he was able to score points.
No, and that's the thing. So it's as long as there is, some room for potential growth there, streakiness is fine. You can learn to work with streakiness. You can calm down players. You can get them in a rhythm and a groove. That's fine. I think the biggest thing here is whether you want to go for someone, Ferguson, who is just physically more athletic and can be a dynamic player, versus Kennard, who elite shooting skills, but at the same time, he's not going to give you as much all-around game. He might not be the best two-way player. He'll give you effort, but he won't be like a lockdown defender. And Ferguson, there's that room to grow because you do have that really good wingspan on someone who's 6'7". So honestly, it's one of those cases where, for me, I think Ferguson's a roll of the dice. It's a long-term project, but also, again, it's that floor to ceiling ratio. We've seen
and how quick is he going to get there? Because Jimmy's only got 2 years with us.
2 guaranteed years with us.
Until we have to pay up.
Right, if he decides to stay.
Yeah.
So Kennard, again, if he's there, which I think I mocked him earlier than the Bulls as well, but if he's there, that would be great for the Bulls. Ferguson's a roll of the dice. I like going wild card this year because, again, this is one of the deeper drafts in the NBA in the last couple of years. At least up front, we understand that. And that's the thing always. It's easier to look back, hindsight's 20/20, but I like rolling the dice in this case because we could get somebody who has legit star potential this late in the draft. And I think that at this point for the Bulls as an organization, if you say Kennard, if you say Justin Jackson, that's great, and I know where we're going. We're going to be a 40 to 45 win team for the next 2 years, and that's probably it. We're not going to compete for a championship. We're not going to be able to get past that. And then at that point, it's what do we have? Do we have a good core of role players? Do we have has anyone stepped up out of their potential zone that we've kind of evaluated them already and gone beyond that and become, really one of our stud players? Or are we just going to be stuck with here's 3.5 role players and Jimmy's walking?
And I mean, looking at the mock draft that we had just came out with, where you can see picks 11 to 20 on the YouTube channel or on Blog Talk Radio /The Fast Break.
Yep.
I had Luke Kennard at 12 to the Pistons. Both you and Sean had him to the Bulls. So you actually had Kennard going to the Bulls, but you didn't have him going anywhere further than that 16. I like Luke Kennard. I mean, the only other player that I hadn't mentioned yet that I didn't, only because now you're saying, like you brought up to me before we started recording, the whole Nico thing.
Yeah.
The other player I would think about if we weren't going to sign Nico would be TJ Leaf. Only because, yet again, a shooter, because that's what we need to space out the floor, but he can bring that at the power forward situation. But I don't know. If I'm picking between Ferguson and Kennard, you might be able to argue with me and say, hey, you know what? Ferguson would be the perfect complement to Jimmy Butler. My only question would be, because he's 19 and he's that project, when is he going to get there?
Yeah.
Will it be after it's too late to be Jimmy Butler's perfect complement piece? That's why I would go with Kennard, who can give me shooting maybe right away.
Yeah,
wouldn't
he
have
has
to
that
adjust
NBA range.
longer. But I want to move on into the part 2. Before we do that, if you're on YouTube, let us know down below what you guys think in the comment section. If you're a Bulls fan, let me know who are you picking at 16, and let me know what players you're hoping are there. One that we didn't mention that I really hope is there, I just don't think he will be there. I don't think he gets out of the top 10, is Donovan Mitchell. If he's there, I would take him, because then he can play either the shooting guard or develop into a point guard behind Rajon Rondo, and point guard is really one of the big positions that we need moving forward as well.
Thank you guys for sticking around for this segment of Behind the Pen. If you want more Most Valuable Podcast content, click on the video up above, because I don't know why you wouldn't want to keep listening to our voices every day. But again, guys, thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate you.